Cronkite News starts now.
Good evening and welcome to Cronkite News on Arizona PBS. I'm Emily Carmen. Thank you for joining us. The FDA has formally approved the Pfizer COVID-19 vaccine. Before yesterday, the vaccine was only available under an emergency use authorization. Now that the vaccine has been formally certified as safe and effective, medical experts are hoping unvaccinated individuals will feel more comfortable getting the shot. Currently, Arizona is at less than optimal vaccination rates, and there is a rapid rise of hospitalizations and deaths among unvaccinated people.
There are definitely people who have stated that they were waiting for the formal approval of the vaccine before they're going to get it. Well, now is a great time to go get vaccinated because it has been formally approved. And then I suspect that there are likely to be businesses and other organizations that now that it's been formally approved will require their employees or the members of their groups to get vaccinated.
COVID-19 testing is back in high demand because of the Delta variant. According to Embry Health, there's been a 1,000% increase in demand for testing since July 1st. Cronkite News reporter Isabella Fredrickson went to Embry Health testing site in Mesa to see the increase.
Embry Health says more than 1,000 people made appointments for COVID testing on July 1st, and on August 18th, the number jumped to more than 11,000. It implemented a rapid response to bring on an additional laboratory in Texas. Chief Executive Officer Raymond Embry says this initiative will help the overwhelmed sites and laboratories in Arizona.
With safety being our number one priority, second priority is ensuring that our patients are able to get results as fast as possible. And we have been actively monitoring the situation. We have an entire team that works hand in hand with our laboratories to closely monitor the situation there on the ground.
The company says it has tested more than 39,000 patients under the age of 18 within the last 30 days.
We realized we needed to ramp up, and when we did that, within 48 hours, most of our sites we had either extended hours to make sure we were meeting those requirements, supplies were being ordered once again, so going from 50K gloves during a week, ramping up to almost 200K.
This past week, they hired 200 new field employers for the sites. However, lines to get tested are still longer than expected.
I was actually here myself. I had some symptoms a couple weeks ago, but there was only like 3 cars, so it seems like something's going on now that in this past 2-3 weeks.
Right now we have 15 separate RVs and vans that we're working to deploy into the community, and we expect to have them out there on city streets and at schools by early next week.
In Mesa, Isabella Fredrickson, Cronkite News.
Embry Health has dozens of free drive-through testing sites across the valley. To get your free COVID test, register at embryhealth.com/COVID-19 testing. The delivery of a report on the 2020 vote count to Arizona State Senate Republicans has been delayed yet again. Republican Senate President Karen Fann says the Cyber Ninja's CEO and several other members of the audit team have COVID, and she says are quite sick. The delay is the latest for the unprecedented partisan review. It has so far taken more than double the 60 days it was originally supposed to take. Democratic Secretary of State Katie Hobbs, who is also running for governor, says this is just another issue with the Senate's process.
In a real audit, you would see timeframes that were laid out well in advance, and we haven't seen any of that here. So no, this is not a surprise.
Fann issued a statement yesterday laying out a timeline. She says the Senate legal team will meet Wednesday to start reviewing the draft report, and when the remainder of the draft is submitted, the Senate team will hold another meeting to continue checking for accuracy, clarity, and proof of documentation of the findings. Once that is complete, the final report will be presented to the Senate Judiciary Committee and findings released to the public. A lawsuit over increased patrols along the U.S.-Mexico border is now settled. A federal judge found that Homeland Security and Customs and Border Protection failed to study potential harms to the environment from increased enforcement. The decision springs from a 2017 lawsuit filed by the Center for Biological Diversity and U.S. Representative Raul Grijalva an Arizona Democrat. It says federal officials failed to prepare an updated environmental impact statement for border enforcement. The city of Tempe is seeing a spike in complaints about unsightly yards and alleys overgrown with weeds. The monsoon dumped a lot of rain last week, creating perfect conditions for weeds. The city of Tempe says it's received about 500 complaints in the last month, compared to 320 complaints this time last year. City regulations are that weeds and grass could not be taller than 12 inches. Homeowners are responsible for keeping the alleys adjacent to their homes free of weeds. If cited, it's a $200 fine for the first offense. And now we are going to look back at some stories that exemplify the unprecedented political landscape we have seen over the last year.
DACA protection can bring undocumented immigrants rights that most Americans take for granted. Things like working, driving, and going to school, but it won't land them a job on Capitol Hill because it's illegal to hire dreamers for federal jobs. Some Arizona lawmakers want to change that, as Molly Hudson reports from our Washington bureau.
Jose Patino first knew he wanted to work in the halls of Congress in 2010 when he came here as a college junior with thousands of other students to lobby for the American Dream Act.
After that, I really wanted to go, but it's just not possible.
Not possible because of his citizenship status as a DACA recipient. Patino cannot work on Capitol Hill because of a little-known law that prohibits hiring undocumented citizens for paid federal jobs. That came as a surprise to Arizona Representative Greg Stanton, who learned he could not hire his campaign director to work in his Washington office. He said that was a tough conversation to have.
Heartbreaking is probably the best way to describe it. I mean, someone that's poured out her time and talent, her heart and soul into your campaign, she would have been a huge asset to the people of Congressional District 9 because of her unique talent and passion and experience.
Attributes he says would benefit Congress if members could hire dreamers.
I think it's a real loss that members of Congress can't have the benefit of having DACA recipients or people who would benefit from the DREAM Act to work on Capitol Hill.
Arizona Representative Ann Kirkpatrick agrees and has been trying, unsuccessfully, to change the law for years now.
These students are wonderful people. They're bright, they're intelligent, they want to make a contribution to the American dream, and they deserve that right.
Stanton has no doubt immigrants can get the job done.
So many of our young people, whether they are documented or undocumented, they're entrepreneurial, many are bilingual, they have family and friends relationships in Mexico, Central Latin America. That's the future. That's the human capital that really benefits us.
Patino still has hopes of working on Capitol Hill, although his aspirations have changed since that first trip in 2010.
For me, it was always Senator John McCain when he was alive, right? He's always been, at least growing up, just having the voice on immigration.
Today, he hopes to contribute by working in the offices of Arizona Senators Kyrsten Sinema or Mark Kelly, which is why he's pulling for Kirkpatrick's bill.
It allows at least DACA recipients to be a little bit more part of the American society.
Kirkpatrick's bill, which would also cover people here on temporary protected status, simply says they'll be treated the same way as a U.S. citizen when it comes to a job in Congress. She has introduced it every year, but is hopeful for this year's version, which has 55 co-sponsors. In Washington, Molly Hudson, Cronkite News.
It's no secret that we live in a polarized time, from social media to talk radio and cable, right up to the riot that took place at the U.S. Capitol on January 6th. If you're thinking it feels worse than it's ever been, you may be right, as Jake Holter reports from our Washington bureau.
When mobs stormed the Capitol on January 6th, Arizona resident Jacob Chansley, better known as the QAnon shaman, left a note behind for Vice President Mike Pence.
Control, we love you guys. We love the cops. It's only a matter of time. Justice is coming.
Prosecutors say that note was a threat. If it was, Chansley is far from alone. U.S. Capitol Police say there were 8,613 credible threats against members of Congress last year. In just the first 3 months of this year, there were 4,500 threats, already more than all of 2017 and on pace to double last year's total. Thomas Mann of the Brookings Institute blames the increase on partisan demonization of the other side.
It sort of legitimizes the most extreme behavior that individual citizens might take.
The hostility is not just directed at Congress. Threats are being felt at the state level as well. Anger over the 2020 elections brought protesters to the home of Arizona Secretary of State Katie Hobbs, who had to be under a security detail for a time. She said it was hardest on her family and staff.
I'm not going to say that any elected official signs up for this when they run for office, because I think it's terrible that we're at that point. But certainly the people that work in my office, the people that work in other election offices are public servants, and they didn't sign up for this.
When State Senator Paul Boyer was the lone Republican to vote against arresting Maricopa County supervisors if they failed to turn over subpoenaed election materials, the angry response briefly drove him from his home.
Yeah, I mean, my assistant told me just here at the Capitol, I received over 5,600 voicemails just on the vote of contempt alone. My personal cell phone, I probably got about 9,000 text messages, about 20,000 emails, and hundreds of phone calls that I'd missed on my own personal cell phone.
The anger does not come as a surprise to Daniel Cox of the Survey Center on American Life. A recent center survey said nearly 3 in 10 Americans agreed with the statement, quote, "If elected leaders will not protect America, the people must do it themselves, even if it requires taking violent actions." And thousands did take violent action on January 6th when mobs stormed the Capitol as Congress was inside certifying the election of President Joe Biden.
There was a lot of anxiety by people and fear, which is appropriate. You could hear a gunshot right outside the chambers. You could start to smell the gas.
Republicans were more likely to support resorting to violence than Democrats in Cox's survey, 39% to 17%. But Arizona Congresswoman Debbie Lesko says it's not a partisan issue.
You know, we have to all work together. I certainly have differences with some of my Democratic colleagues on major issues, but I think we should all treat each other with respect.
But Cox said America still has work to do before it can reach that point of respect again.
We've got to shut down some of this worse rhetoric about the other side represents some malign force in society that needs to be destroyed, right? The political rhetoric has just got to be dialed down.
In Washington, Jay Coulter, Cronkite News.
It's been a little more than 100 days since that attack on the Capitol. The Justice Department says that more than 400 people have been arrested so far in connection with it. An investigation is continuing. At least 4 people from Arizona have been charged, including Jacob Chansley, the so-called Q shaman.
Between a pandemic, civil unrest, border security, and natural disasters, a larger share of Arizona National Guard soldiers were in the field last year than at almost any time in the state's history. Washington Bureau reporter Molly Hudson talked to them about a very trying year.
If you think your 2020 was tough, try talking to an Arizona National Guard soldier.
It's been a roller coaster ride.
From stocking pandemic-depleted grocery shelves, to fighting wildfires, to providing support at the border and in cities hit by civil unrest, Arizona Guardsmen have been constantly pulled in different directions, including Colonel Tom Leeper, who was put in charge of a new task force medical.
I am a physician. I work downtown Phoenix in the emergency department. So it was really hard for them to let go of me during this period of time.
A period of time that kept the Guard busier than it has been since 9/11, says former Arizona Adjutant General Michael McGuire.
This is the first time in my career since that first 90 days after 9/11 that we had a statewide declaration of emergency going. And in this case, it was for COVID-19.
Arizona soldiers were not alone. The National Guard Bureau said that Guard units nationwide spent over 10.3 million days in the field last year. That's 4 times more than 2019. And they're called on to do a little bit of everything.
We had 85% of the 8,300 members of the National Guard, of which only about 2,200 of them are here every day, full time, on duty.
The Guard was already helping at the border when COVID-19 broke out. They stocked shelves, set up testing sites, and later delivered vaccines. As that was going on, George Floyd's killing sparked civil unrest.
We put 1,495 of our National Guardsmen on duty in support of 5 county sheriff's office and 12 police departments.
35 Arizona Guard members and 3 Black Hawk helicopters were sent to fight California wildfires in the summer, all while continuing to provide support for pandemic services. And the demand has continued into this year with support for the inauguration.
Arizona has participated in that every inauguration since I've been 20 years in the Guard. And we had committed at that point 29 service members
and the Guard continues to deliver COVID vaccines, helping administer over 290,000 vaccines since December.
Thank goodness, finally, vaccines came along. And that was where I think we made our most lasting impact was helping set up vaccination sites.
In Washington, Molly Hudson, Cronkite News.
General McGuire should get a break after that hectic year. He retired Saturday after serving as an adjutant general since 2013. Taking his place is Brigadier General Carrie Muhlenbeck, who becomes the first woman to serve as head of the National Guard in Arizona.
That's it for Cronkite News tonight. Thanks for joining us. Dating is a whole new world post-quarantine. We break down love after the lockdown and if COVID changed dating forever. It's all coming up next. For top Arizona stories anytime, go to cronkitenews.azpbs.org.